Sorry about that, everybody. Don't know what happened beyond my small brain capabilities to understand. Here we have returned to the den where Ribbon has also returned to her den. She has not moved her den. Furthermore, she has made no attempt to show us her cubs. I'm starting to find her reticence to show us her children frustrating. Ribbon, we want to see your babies, please. Just doesn't seem to care. Really just doesn't seem to mind that there are thousands of people around the world who would like to see her babies. And yet selfishly there she lies, oblivious. I think it is the obliviousness of nature that is so appealing and yet intimidating at the same time. While we wait for Ribbon to do something other than nothing, I'm going to ask Owen to cast his camera towards what I think is a bateleur. Can you see it there, Owen? Now?
Yeah, he's got it.
What could be a brown snake eagle? I can't actually see. It's a brown snake eagle. It turned its head. I think it's a brown snake eagle.
Yeah, it's not a bateleur.
I think it's a brown snake eagle. And what it's doing is drying its wings as the sun comes up. And that's quite a nice shot of it, really, I think. Well, I mean, I can't see what you see. I'm now looking with my binoculars, which are covered in mist. Or fog, sorry.
Quite morose.
Jeff, as with many of the collective nouns that we find around here, lion prides and hyena clans have got absolutely no biological meaning. It's entirely English convention. So, yeah, I don't know why lions are called prides, and I don't know the etymology of the word pride. But that's why it's got nothing to do with anything to do with their biology that designates one from the other. I hope that makes sense. Beautiful bird. Thinking about possibly going off to find some breakfast. Now that the mist has started to lift, the fog, it'll almost immediately disappear. Doesn't seem to happen slowly. Once it moves, it moves. So it feels like a weekend. I know it is a weekend, but it feels like one out here. You know, normally you can't distinguish one day from the next. Now, one of the great sights of andBeyond Ngala is a huge troop of baboons on the sandy riverbed of the Timbavati.
Welcome back, everyone, to andBeyond Ngala. We just found a big troop of baboons as we were moving through the river to see if we had any signs of the leopard. But have a look at how big that baboon is right in the middle. You can see the one is just grooming the back. He's such a big individual. Earlier on he walked, and we actually thought it was a different animal, and then when he sat down we realized it was a baboon, and the others then joined up. So normally after a long day of walking in the bush, that's what the rangers would have to do with one another, just groom, get all the ticks off. You can actually see, like, amongst the troop, there's actually some impala that's also joined up. Because you can imagine with baboons, there's eyes up in the trees, there's quite a few eyes around. So if there's any potential danger, they'll immediately give like this very loud bark, and then from there on, all these other ones will then disperse to the trees, and those impalas will just run in the opposite direction. But such a nice way to stay safe, especially if you've been kicked out of the herd and you're all pretty much by yourself. Look at that. Look at the little one that just jumped onto Mum's back. Rory, you have a good question. Have I ever seen wild dogs hunting baboons like in Mana pools? To be honest, I've never seen it. I'm sure there's probably been cases about it, but I've just honestly never seen it. Not here, not at Ngala yet, or during my time here. COVID, I agree with you. There are. Look, there's one that just came off to the right that's carrying a young baby on its back. I just want to quickly focus on that. Have a look. See how they are. Try to pull them off. Let's have a look and see if the youngster jumps back onto Mom's back. You can see Mom's patiently waiting. I think she might be groomed.
Yep.
All the hard to reach places. The little one's just sitting on the side. Let's just have a look. I think there might be a young baby at the back playing with a stick. I just want to quickly have a look. Can't see it now. But there's quite a few babies. Like I already counted something like 3 or 4 of them. You can see there's a young baby in the middle here, and also a youngster playing with each other. Just look beyond those ones. Look at how that one is literally laying like a human being, laying with his head on the sand. Oh, just turning around onto his back, scratching his belly. There's the little one just poking his head out. Rochi, you asked a very good question. Do I think baboons are capable of killing a human? I would say, like if you look at some of the bigger ones, they do have that capability, especially for quite a young person. Because you can imagine with baboons, like their teeth are probably going to be the same size as that of a lion. So they will have that capability, but they won't actively hunt. Look at how Mum just picked up the little one.
Let's just say I won't even challenge a mid-sized baboon.
Marshall said, like, you won't even challenge a mid-sized baboon. Now, I'm different than him. I won't even challenge that little one, you know, the baby that's just been running around. I reckon he'll make me look... he'll embarrass me quite a bit.
I've seen baboons, what they do to vivid monkeys, and no.
It's often, whenever you watch a troop of baboons, they are hysterical, the way that they can interact with one another, and especially if one steps out of line, you can hear they'll be quickly. One of the more dominant ones will put them back in their place. Look at the little one. Louise, that's a very good comment. I heard Louise reckons it looks like a family down at the beach. Definitely my family. Mom, Dad, I hope you're watching. Theo, you were asking a very good question. How long before the little ones can start running around with the rest of the troop? Now, it's until, like from my knowledge that I remember, also from what I've seen, is normally when they get close to like 3-4 months, like you'll see the mum will still carry them, and then like she'll leave them and they'll run around. But whenever there's danger, like unless they well over a year old, mom is more likely just to go and grab them, or probably like from 6-7 months old, she'll just grab them and then run off with them. But it's after a year and that they're more than capable of defending for themselves. But when they're that small, mom won't let them out of their sight for too long. And even sometimes if the mom's not nearby, one of the bigger adults would often grab a baby if there's any danger, pull it towards their chest for them to cling on, and then run off with them. And you'll see often when they run, they'll run in like 2-3 legs while the other hand is over the baby, until the baby is latched on completely before they start running. You'll see there's quite a big baboon now coming in that just came off the bank. He's now you'll see him now close to that little one. There he is. Look at the size of him. So with these baboons, like based on what I understand about baboon behavior and also about their structure, is that most of them would probably be related, but there would be a few individuals that could have joined up with a troop. To be honest, like I do not have too much information or a lot of knowledge regarding the whole structure of a troop of baboons. I only know from what I've read in a few articles regarding that most of them would probably be related. But there are a few individuals that often join up with the rest of the troop. There's quite a few of them around. You'll see there's actually 1 or 2 more that are coming down. Bernard, you're asking a really good question. Why would some of the baboons have those big bottoms? So when the females go into estrus, they'll have those big bottoms. Or when they're on heat, that's when they go into they'll get those big bottoms. But you won't see it with the males. So that's just a sign for them saying that they're ready to mate. Have you noticed this one? It looks like he's dead. Just the way that he's like laying down. You'll see now and again there's movement, like he'll turn around onto his back or stretch out his arm. Let's just have a look. probably knows that the journey is still long for the day, so he's probably just trying to get a power nap. Just quickly scratching his butt. You can just see behind him how the little ones are having a bit of a tussle.
Asking older brother for some help.
Jolly Whiskey, you're asking a really good question. Are there more than one breeding male within a troop? And the answer is yes. There's often, the group will be led by quite a few dominant males or senior males within the troop, and they are the ones that will have the rights to mate with some of the females. But in some of the smaller troops, if there's just one big male, then of course he'll have the mating rights. But a troop this big, there'll be more than one male. So we're going to slowly carry on, but for now, let's head across to Lauren with the kudu.
Those baboons sounded fantastic to watch. I'm jealous. But I do have a female kudu here. In the exact same place that we had the kudu family yesterday, actually. So I'm wondering if it's the same ones. And the reason we stopped is she was very alert. She seems to be very interested in something in our direction, and it's not us. No, she's not alert anymore. And as I always say, it's just worth paying attention to various different antelope species. You really can give the game away if there's a predator nearby. You could be driving past the predator, but if you just pay attention to the kudu, even in Ngala, impala, they can really give the game away. But I don't think there's anything to worry about. She's having a groom. A morning groom. Now that the sun has popped out, we can actually feel some warmth. Ah, it's delicious. Hello, Miss Kudu. She's young. Female kudus get much larger than this. I'm just going to quickly check the Mulwanini area. I always think it's worth checking. We may lose some signal down there, so as I head in that direction, we are going to send you guys back across to James.
We have got a squirrel sitting, looking at the sun coming up. Seems to be quite a happy squirrel, in so much as he's not alarm calling it anything. Can hear a green-backed Cameroptera calling behind us. Kirsten, who's in the final control this morning, says it looks like its front feet are cold. I don't think that that's true. I think that probably most of it is quite cold, actually. Very sweet.
Morning, Stacey.
Excuse the radio.
We've got a tortured pride.
Let me just turn that off. Now, I think these things are certainly one of the cutest animals that we find out here. And interestingly, they're one of the few mammals that remain cute as adults. Many animals become magnificent as adults, but you wouldn't describe them as cute, whereas a squirrel maintains that throughout its life. And as some of you will know, I recently went to the Ngala on honeymoon with my good wife, and we went camping, yes, on honeymoon, and we had the most wonderful experiences with ground squirrels up there. And I'm sure some of you would have seen these creatures before and spent time with them. But they're enormously confiding, so they habituate to people very quickly. And you can operate, take pictures of them a meter away. And they just get on with their lives. And these little chaps are quite similar, I think. And what I think is interesting also is that they are rodents. So when you think of a squirrel, you don't think of a rat necessarily, or something related to a rat. But indeed, that is what they are. Yes, I'm afraid so, my friend. You are a rodent. There is no other way about it. Right, well, the squirrel is going to sit enjoying the sun for a little while longer. You're going to go back to the enormously amusing and probably very funny baboon troop with Nikki.
So have a look how the little one is trying to get onto Mom, but he's constantly dropping off, and Mom is just moving without giving him a hand. Oh, there he is. He's on. I just want to see if the mom's going to drop that one again, because we have another one that's actually sitting on a little branch. So would you be able to see those ones there? Yes, at the back. It's on that, looks like a little branch. Oh, just jumped off. But it was sitting on that branch, just enjoying that early morning sun. There's another little one that's on its way. Chris and Melissa, you were asking a very good question. What's the difference between a monkey and an ape? Well, I'm not too sure. I don't know if any of our viewers would be able to.
Monkey's got a tail, an ape doesn't.
So I've spoken to Marcel about it. So I know from my experience, a monkey has a tail and an ape doesn't have a tail. But I don't know if there's any other features or anything that some of our viewers can share. Because I'm not too sure. I mean, I haven't dealt too much with that question, and I haven't really done too much research in that field. But I would love to know for what everyone thinks about it. Andrea, I agree with you. It is a real treat looking at this troop, especially seeing a bit of the interactions. Now they are slowly moving. If you have a look at these ones again, you'll see there's another youngster that's coming in, but all of them, especially all the young ones, are so mischievous at the moment. You can see how they're just running and pulling each other's, the one just grabbed the other one's ears a while ago and just ran off, and I thought, why would you do that? It just reminded me, sibling wars. Indigo Girl, you had a very good comment about that apes have bigger brains, are normally larger than that of monkeys. Thank you for that. Maddie, you asked a very good question. How do baboons hunt? So normally they are omnivores, so they'll pretty much eat anything, from fruits, berries, roots, insects. And so with insects, what they often do is if they see something, let's say a grasshopper that lands, they actually go and they grab it with their hands and then of course eat that. But when they hunt something like an impala, I've seen a baboon before, like especially one of these bigger baboons, and he actually walked quite close to a little impala lamb and pretended that he was like feeding right next to it. And at that moment, he basically just grabbed this little impala and then used those big teeth and just bit behind the neck. And then from there on, he started feeding on that young impala lamb. But so whenever they hunt, they tend to like forage quite close to whatever they want to hunt, especially with that day that I saw was a young impala lamb. But normally they won't actively as a troop engage into trying to hunt, like chase down a prey and then hunt it from there. However, if there's an opportunity, being opportunistic, they'll try and take it. But mainly grasshoppers, berry seeds, maybe shoots, roots, chance of some of the beetles, scorpions, maybe birds' eggs. I've seen them trying to go for a warbeck's eagle's nest, and the warbeck's eagles managed to fend them off for quite a while. So, but they are slowly moving off. Like you'll notice the last one is disappearing onto that game trail. So a game trail is just an area that animals often use to move in and out of an area, especially where there's water or away from water. So there was an elephant early on, and I wanted to point out to all the viewers, but the elephant just quickly came down. He saw the troop of baboons, like he was hesitant of what it was, and then from there on he moved off. It was quite a young bull. For now, let's carry on with our drive. What a nice treat. And what they'll probably do from here, you can imagine they just woke up, they came down, had a bit of a play in the riverbed, and from here on, they'll start looking out for food, eventually maybe go and drink, and this evening, they'll probably come back to the same tree where they were spending the evening, and that's where they'll probably spend the night. So, for now, while we are still looking out for our leopard this morning, let's head across to Lauren.
I'm still looking for a leopard, but no luck yet. Not even a single track. I checked the Mobanini, where it's rumored that it was Tandy's kill. I said another property called Torchwood, but we can of course traverse that boundary. So I just had a little look, you never know. Sometimes leopards leave the kill and they go rest close, well, nearby. Thought it was worth a look, but unfortunately nothing. Lots of hyena tracks, so I know what the Djuma clan have been up to. I know where the Djuma clan have been. Spider webs. Ugh. That one was for you, Davi. Did you get it? Yeah. Good. Jane, no, they do not. Not all animals out here are territorial. It really depends what animals you're talking about. Now, of course, for the cats, your lions and your leopards, yes, they are territorial. Territory is very, very important for them, and they will mark it in the same way. Spraying urine, I like to call it scooshing urine, because it's a scoosh, scoosh, and making their feces very obvious. Their scat contains chemical cues, and rubbing the sebaceous glands in their cheeks against the vegetation. But hyenas, for example, when they're marking their territory, they do something very wonderful called anal pasting. Yes, it's slightly bizarre. Where do I start with this one? So they go into a squat position and they turn their anus inside out. So you can see the insides come out. It's very bizarre to watch. And they paste a substance onto the vegetation where they want to mark their territory. And that is called anal pasting, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I am more than sure we will see it happen a lot once the hyena den becomes really, really active. Once those cubs are fully out and about, we shall see anal pasting. How exciting. Yes, so hyenas do it that way. Lots of animals will vocalize. I am here, this is my territory, stay away. So it really depends what animals you are looking at. Birds are territorial and they call. It's all about the vocalizations. Some birds, when they're calling, they're actually not trying to attract a mate. They're trying to say, this is my turf. There's actually lots of studies of some birds that migrate. And when they migrate to their territory in another country, they actually go back to the same territory and they can recognize their neighbors. Birds obviously have smaller territories, so they actually know who's the neighbor to the north, who's the neighbor to the south. And in an experiment, I've got some more crested francolins here, but no little, oh wait, no little ones, just 3 francolins. Excuse me everyone, you're kind of in the middle of the road. And yes, they did an experiment where they actually switched up where the neighbours were. So they put the north one in the south and the south one in the east, and you get my point. And it caused mass confusion to the birds. They weren't able to compute because they can memorise the calls of their neighbours. They know what the neighbour in the north sounds like and they know what the neighbour in the south sounds like. So it goes back to the point, know thy enemy. The enemy is always a member of the same species. The biggest threat to any animal is an individual of your own species. So most individuals of any species, whether you're a fish or a chameleon or a bird or whatever type of animal you are, you will have the ability to recognize members of your own species. Whether it's by smell, whether it's by sound, whether it's by sight, there will be some sort of mechanism that allows you to recognize one another. So yes, animals mark their territories in all sorts of weird and wonderful ways. Fish also mark their territory on the coral reef. Oh yes, they do. Okay, Lauren, let's go find some leopards. As I search for my spots, I'm going to send you back across to Mr. Hendry and see how he's getting on.
Oh, well, not very well. Nothing of great import to tell you. We saw a starling there. It's such an awful picture with it silhouetted against the blinding sky that I think we'll just carry on. Chagra also flew past into a bush. So we're now going to our standard issue go-to place, the northeast corner to Buffel's Hook Dam. Ooh, there's a white-browed scrub robin in there. Milan, you're aged 10 years old and wondering if the animals know there's a lockdown. Well, given that they don't speak a great deal of English, I'd say probably not. But I tell you what, Milan, they will notice the fact that there are fewer vehicles and people around. So, although some... Can you see it there?
Yeah.
Although some... Oh, you beastly bird, it's gone. It was a white-browed scrub robin, everybody. I think. I didn't actually see it very well. I just saw a flash.
It's been darting around a lot.
It's gone. Let me just go back a bit. So, Milan, although they don't know that there's a lockdown, I'm pretty sure they must notice that there are fewer people knocking about this reserve. I don't think they think about it, really. They just probably find their lives slightly more peaceful. Let's carry on into the glorious Saturday morning. Now, normally at the end of drive, I would go home and quickly switch on the rugby and watch it for most of the rest of the day until afternoon drive. But unfortunately, that too has been put paid to by this beastly virus. And Nanda, you're wondering about the difference between a game reserve and a national park. I think they mean different things in different countries. In this particular country, they're often used interchangeably. I'll tell you quite a funny story about that. Quite a funny story, not a hilarious one. And the national parks are the parks that are owned and run by the government. They're run by the South African National Parks Board. And I think we have about, I actually don't know how many we have in the country, somewhere around 20 that are national parks, of which the Kruger National Park is the most famous and also the largest. A game reserve, I suspect, is anything that is an area of natural interest that is protected from or for wildlife and for wildlife use, but normally by private individuals. So Djuma Private Game Reserve is where we are now. It's privately owned. It is a nature reserve where animals and fauna and flora, nature is preserved and kept safe. So I guess that would be the difference. People of my parents' generation always refer to the Kruger National Park as the Game Reserve. So when you speak to my folks, or many in their generation, and you say, well, where are you going for your holiday? I'll say, we're going to the Game Reserve. And the implication is that they're coming to the Kruger National Park. I don't know why I find that funny, but I do. Well, of course, says my mother, when we were at the Game Reserve last year, that elephant made me very afraid. Is yours the same?
Yeah, it's
Owen's folks the same. It was the Game Reserve. When strictly speaking, I suppose it isn't. It's a national. Well, every national park is a game reserve, I suppose, but not every game reserve is a national park. What I don't understand is the American terminology preserve. So I think it means the same thing, a game preserve. But whenever I hear the term, I think of jam, or what in the States is called jelly. So we'd call them a preserve here. And when everyone says a game preserve, I think of some kind of liquidized venison that is kept in a jar, sweetened. And obviously that's not what it is, but it's the image that strikes me whenever I hear the term game preserve. It really doesn't matter what you call them, does it? Grant, you say you can relate to the game reserve. Perhaps you're of my parents' generation, or you have parents that do it. Say the game reserve. Yes, no, I've got it. Thank you, Indigo Girl. You say you call it a game preserve because it's where you keep animals safe and preserve them. No, I understand why it's called that. Because we don't use it, I always think of a liquidized piece of venison in a jar. Oh, yeah. Well, look, let's try. There's some white-crested helmet shrikes on the top of that torchwood tree. There's some other things, but with the sun so bright behind them, they're going to be tricky to see. Let me know if you get a view of them there, Owen. It's also interesting how the sounds change as the sun comes up, the heat builds. The Franklins aren't calling anymore. Doves are still going.
It could be the shrike of mine at the moment.
I can't see what Owen can see, everybody, so if you're wondering why it is that Owen's telling me that, I don't know what he's looking at, because it's too far away. Apparently, Kirsten says it was the helmet shrikes. That's good news.
So backlit you don't get
Can't get anything really. I'm just casting my binoculars over the shores of this vast lake, which I must tell you, for most of you, is a lot more vast than we have experienced it. For Mel, the best time to visit the game reserve really depends on what you like. I shall give you the quick speech. Between the months of April, May and June, it's not too cold yet. Well, June's quite chilly in the morning, but it's not too cold. The weather is the best at this time of year. April, May, that's the best. June, July, August can be cold in the morning. Not freezing, but it can be pretty chilly. But game viewing's pretty good because the leaves and grasses are starting to thin out, and so it's easier to find things. Then into August, September, October, November, before the rains, the game viewing is excellent because the water is very concentrated, the rain hasn't come yet, the leaves and grasses haven't flushed properly, and so it's a very dry area though, and so it can look very harsh if you're not used to it. It's sort of colors of copper and bronze and gold and quite a lot of grey, but the game viewing's excellent normally. You've got the grebe there. And then the rains start, let's say, all things being equal, in December, January, February. It can be very wet. It's kind of hit or miss whether you're going to get rained on or not. But it's beautiful because all the lambs are out, everything's turning green, it just feels exuberant and like there's new life. And then you kind of get back to this time of the year. So, yeah, weather-wise, March, April, May the best. Game viewing-wise, September, October, November. Good mix is the winter, June, July, August. And I'm going to stop waffling now because Nicky has managed to put us all to shame up at Ngala, and he's found himself a leopard.
So we came back to where that carcass was, and one of the other rangers, Rowan, was driving past, and he said to us, like, he saw the male leopard that came to come and have a look at the carcass again. So I don't know if everyone can see him, but look at how well he is hidden. So this is the same one that Sean saw yesterday that referred to as Thomboeti Tom. If we try and refocus it, you'll just see his eyes and ears like through the grass. Look at how well camouflaged. And I wonder with all because I'm having a look, the Warburg's eagle the tawny eagle is still here as well as the Battery, and I wonder with them being around, he probably would have left earlier on this morning to go and maybe have a drink, and now on his way back he probably saw them here and he quickly came up to come and have a look. You can see now and then he's looking up at the carcass, but then also there's some vultures just behind us and he's also looking at them. James, you had a very good question. Have I ever had or seen an interaction between Thomboeti Tom and the Makoti male? No, I haven't personally. I've heard about there was an interaction, I think, a few months ago, but I just haven't seen it yet. But what I have seen, though, is, remember earlier on we were driving and we were talking about the Shitsalala female with her two youngsters. Now, I have seen before where that female made a kill, and then she hoisted up in the tree, and as she went to go and call the cubs, this male came and he stole the kill. So she couldn't come back to it. So I have seen a few of those reactions where he would often go and steal kills. But it'd be interesting to know, with both the impala carcasses that we have seen, I wonder if he might have killed the one, and then of course being opportunistic he might have stolen this one from the female, because the other carcass there's no signs of any predator around it, which is often strange, especially if it is on the ground, because you would almost think With the hyenas and that moving through the area, they'll probably want to take it and hoist it up into a tree, but it just hasn't been touched yet. You can see he's just laid down. You can barely see him. So we will spend some time here, because I can imagine, like, as soon as he starts feeling the need to eat again, he'll probably head up in the tree towards the carcass. It would be really worth it for us just to stay here and see and hope for the best, because it would be an amazing opportunity to see that. So there's a bird. So there's a bird that's calling. Gerald, then I'll get back to your question regarding if leopards look up to the sky to see if there's any potential bird of prey that might steal the kill, or warn the others that there might be a kill here. So there's a bird that was calling earlier. I don't know if everyone heard it. It sounded like it's a grey-headed bushrack, and this one not too far away from us, and now and then as we're talking you can just hear it in the background. But they do. Sometimes I have seen leopards, especially when they lay in the grass and there's like a yellow-billed kite that lands on top of the tree. You can often see them snarling at those kites, because often after the kites you'll find that pretty soon after that the vultures would arrive, and after the vultures the hyenas start arriving. And so if the kill is not hoisted up in the tree, the leopard, or if there's no tree nearby to hoist it up, the leopard does become very uncomfortable with that. So for now, we'll keep a good look to see if he starts moving, but let's head across to James with some vultures up in the tree.
There we have got some vultures, a hooded vulture and two white-headed vultures. No, white-backed vultures. Normally, when you see vultures such, you would expect that there could be some sort of meat around, because they are a mixed species flock. But whether that is in fact the case, I don't know. We just thought we'd have a look at the vultures first, and then we'll see. We'll get a bit closer and have a look. No, Cal6, they will definitely feed on kills in a tree. Doesn't have to be on the ground. I mean, it's normally on the ground, but they will certainly, if a leopard leaves a kill in a tree, the vultures will not be fussy about its location. They'll happily go and devour it while it's up in the boughs. Now, vultures, of course, are critically endangered, most of them, including the white-backed vulture, which is our most common one. And it's a great sadness. And quite interestingly, a friend of mine shared some information about some tagged vultures, hooded and white-backed, and the areas that they move in. And they move quite widely unless they're nesting, in which case they concentrate on the nest area and move about. But what was fascinating to me was that when you look at the GPS distribution of where they fly, they avoid leaving protected areas. So that you don't find them flying out over the villages or communities outside these areas, or over towns close by. And I wondered if that's because they've learned that those are dangerous places for them to be, or because there's just simply a lack of food. And I mean, I know there's definitely a lack of food in those areas, because you wouldn't expect them to find a whole lot of carcasses lying about on the ground. But I wondered if perhaps they weren't learning that being over human settlements was a dangerous thing for them to engage in. A lot of vultures die when carcasses are poisoned, and those carcasses are poisoned either to kill predators that are on farmlands, or indeed to kill vultures so that they can be harvested for their parts and sold for traditional medicine. And it's interesting, especially in South Africa, the need for cultural sensitivity on all fronts, but at the same time trying to balance the obviously deleterious effects on wildlife. So that's one interesting part of the discussion. The other interesting part of it, of course, is that you get a lot of chattering about how, cutting off a vulture's head to use it in traditional medicine is so backward. But then at the same time, those are it's the same kinds of I suppose, slightly shallow thinkers who don't think about it when they, or don't realize the effect that they have living a first world lifestyle. Driving a big car, cooking toast in a toaster, and the invisible effects on the environment are just as harmful, of course. So it's a sensitive topic that needs to be addressed, and I think it needs to be addressed much more honestly than we're prepared to address it now, on both scores. That is me becoming philosophical, because I can't think of anything particularly biological to tell you about these chaps. And just to clarify, I think that harvesting vultures for medicinal purposes is not a practice that should ever be continued. I think it should be discontinued immediately. It's the discussions around it that need to be handled with sensitivity by people who are extremely well aware of the effects that they too are having on the environment. No, Jared, it's not the grumpiest bird in the world. The grumpiest bird in the world, Jared, is, I think, this bird, and I'll show you why it's grumpy. It's called a marabou stork, and it's so grumpy, Jared, because really it is, I'm afraid to say, it's very ugly. It's a very ugly bird. And I'll show you a picture of it, and when you see it, you'll think to yourself, goodness gracious me, surely not. Here we go, Owen. I'm afraid the sun is going to make this quite difficult. I think that's a pretty grumpy looking bird, don't you? Can you see it?
It's got a...
Yeah? You got it?
Yeah. It's got a jolly looking picture there.
No. I'm getting a bit of disagreement here. Some people saying they look quite jolly. All right. Kirsten's suggesting maybe an owl. Yeah, owls can look pretty grumpy. I'll tell you what else looks really grumpy. Let me just quickly find it for you. Is an eagle.
I meant there's worse pictures of a marabou than the one you had.
Let me try and find you a picture of this chap. No, these are nice pictures too. They don't look very grumpy in those pictures. There, he looks quite grumpy. You see that?
Tilts the phone downwards a bit.
Yeah. I'm afraid with the sun shining on, it's very difficult. Let's not worry about it. They're quite grumpy, Jared, but they're not the grumpiest birds in the world, I don't think. I suppose, Jared, you would also be pretty grumpy if you had to eat what the hooded vulture has to eat. And of course, the hooded vulture has the unfortunate role of eating lion scat, which of course, I must stop saying of course, which is just disgusting. And so maybe the hooded vulture is the grumpiest bird in the world because that's what it has to eat. So what we shall do is progress gently forward and see if we can't find what these vultures were looking at. Some of you saying a shoebill looks grumpy. I don't have a picture of a shoebill with me. A shoebill I don't think looks very grumpy. I think that they look quite intimidating, certainly, but I'm not sure I'd describe them as grumpy. Now let's drive very slowly forward and see if these vultures haven't spotted something. The difficulty when vultures have seen a carcass is that they have got such good eyes that they'll happily go and sit and wait for the predator to depart a long way from where she'll meet it. I think our signal's not going to be great if we move forward in, so we'll just have one last look at these vultures, and then I'll have a cast about here to see if there's anything else. The Tambuti Tom seems to be taking a weekend off, and so let's go and find out if he's missing the Super Rugby.
He's barely moved. The only time he's lifted up his head is when that tawny eagle that was sitting on the tree behind him, the one that we had earlier on the camera, when it moved to the back of the tree, like it really drew his attention. But as soon as he moved off and he realized there was no further danger of any other thing going for his impala, he just flopped down, and now he's down again. I think what we'll do here is we'll give it another couple of minutes, maybe 10 or so minutes, to see if he gets up. If not, maybe we can explore some of the other areas, maybe go past that hyena den and see if there's any signs there. Mark, you had a very good question. Would the leopard eat up in the tree, or would he bring his food down to the ground? So he will eat up in the tree. You can see, we're going to try and adjust. You'll just see right through there. I think it's the back leg of that impala. And you can see also where the ribs have been opened up. But so he'll eat up in the tree, and sometimes when there's a big bit of meat that dropped onto the ground, if the hyenas didn't catch it, he'll sometimes go down and grab it, and he might just go and move away and then go and eat it there and then go back up into the tree. But if it's in the tree, he'll eat in the tree. If it's on the ground, sometimes he'll feed off of it as much as he can, and then he'll go up, store it up in the tree for later use. I think he just popped up his head. I think there was some movement in the grass behind us, and he popped up his head. Let's just quickly see if we can find him in the tall grass. Here we go. So there was some movement, probably from a frankling behind us in the grass, and that immediately caught his attention. So sometimes when they do move onto the ground, even though it does look like they're sleeping and they're zoned off to the rest of the world, they're so aware of what's going on around them. And any movement, any unnatural sound will immediately grab his attention. You can see the way his head is moving, he is panting quite a bit, and I think it's because his belly is so full after a good meal, and now because he's also laid probably more on his stomach, it's pushing against his lungs. Oh, he just flopped down again. I mean, if you drive past the area, how difficult would it be to see this leopard if he's laying down like that? Look at that. You can just see his belly moving in the grass, he is panting quite a bit. Definitely a good meal. Lauren, H6, you were asking a very good question. How long does the meat last before it starts going off? Now, with leopards, they're very smart. They'll sometimes pull it up into a tree. They'll sometimes stash it in a really dense area, and because it's out of the sun, they'll probably go 4 or 5 days while they'll eat on it, and then normally after that's when the hyenas take it. So it all depends where it is. If it's in the bright sun and there's no real shade nearby, the meat might go off in 2.5, 3 days, completely off, but then normally the hyenas would pick that up. But leopard, if they can feed quite a bit on this Apollo. So this one here, I don't think will last too long, maybe another day or so, if that long. But let's say if he had to disappear from here, I'm sure other leopards will probably be able to smell that, and they'll come in and clean it off. But normally it won't last more than 4 or 5 days without it either completely eating it, and if there's little remnants left over, then of course it will just go off because the hyenas won't be able to get to it. Yeah, I picked up his head again. So if you notice, a very interesting characteristic of him is on his right ear, so the left on the screen right to us, you'll notice there's a little chunk out of his ear. And I wonder if that might have been from battling with another leopard, or maybe it's an injury that he got when he was really small. But I do, like, if there's one animal that I do, marine, I do agree with you. They are very well camouflaged, and I can imagine how difficult it is to spot them, even for us. Like, often driving past it is really hard to spot them, and what we try to look out for is any movement. Maybe even you can see with the belly there's a bit of a flash of white in the grass, and then often now and then you'll see the tail flicking up, and it is hard. I mean, often, even as rangers, we often tease and say, I wonder how many leopards have we driven past today where either we haven't seen any tracks, or maybe they've just been laying right next to wherever we were driving, but they're just so well camouflaged that you can't really see them. And they have a very interesting spot pattern. You can see with a little bit that you can see there. What's different from cheetah, because cheetah have those spots, the leopards have rosettes. It looks like 4 or 5 spots that are fused together. And there's a grey go-away bird that just joined in above us. Don't know if anyone heard that going. We're just here. All right, so we'll give it another few minutes, but if he doesn't do anything from here, we might just come back on this afternoon's drive and see if he's moved up into the tree. But for now, let's head across to Lauren.
We have a butterfly. We've been waiting for this one to rest. Straight away, you can see that it's an acria. Acria are quite a common group of butterflies that we actually get out here, and they were the ones that first sort of started to appear at the very, very beginning of summer, the acria grouping of butterflies. And I think this one is a dancing acria. Davy spotted some elephants. We're going to leave this little dancing acria. Bear with me. It's a big boy. I think I'm going to reverse. It's a big bull. Or would you rather I went forward, Davy? Okay, we're going to reverse. Hold on. It's a huge bull. Hello, boy. Haha, yes, you see us. Okay, a little bit more. You should be appearing from this termite mound. There we go. Now, everyone, if you are enjoying the safaris and jumping on board with us 6 hours every day, please do head over to www.wildearth.tv/support, and you're welcome to help us in any way that you may wish to. Hello, boy. Oh, you're streaming quite heavily from your temporal glands. Do you see that stream just behind his eye? There's a gland there. It's a very special gland called the temporal gland. And elephants can stream from there. They can secrete a liquid. And it can be a sign of an elephant in must, but it can also be a sign of any sort of emotion. Females are known to get quite emotional, and they will also stream from these glands when they're reunited with one another, or when there's some sort of celebration to be happy about. They will also stream from these glands, so it's not always just must. Now I think if I just do a U-turn, I'm going to get a really good look at this bull. He knows we're here. He had a sniff. He put out that trunk, and he's had a really good sort of assessment of what and who we are. Of course, bulls wander out here alone. Once they're ousted from the herd, they have a very nomadic existence. So I think this bull is completely on his own, just bashing his way through the bush. Yeah, he's right here. Just going to go up ahead to this open part, Davy. How is this? And really, once bulls do become far too boisterous, they are kicked out of herds, and it's completely normal for this to happen. They just become too much. They've got testosterone pumping through them, and it's just not sustainable or safe, really, to have them in the herd, especially when there's lots of youngsters around. And that's why the females, even if they're the mother, the aunt, the sister, the cousin, they will say, it's time. You must go now. It's time for you to go. We cannot have you in the herd any longer. You're being too boisterous. You're being far too naughty. Go. And I often think, I'm well aware this is anthropomorphizing, but I do often wonder if it's hard for them in any sort of way. Not to put human emotions onto that situation, but I do wonder, you're brought up in a herd with your relatives. It's a very close-knit herd, close-knit society. You're always surrounded by people. And then all of a sudden you reach a certain age and you're going through changes in your own body, and everyone around you that you have grown up with is telling you to leave. I don't know, I just wonder for lions also how that must feel. I can imagine that would be really, really tough. Okay, we're going to try and catch up with him a little bit. We're not blocking his path. We just want to be side by side with him. He knows we're here. Okay, a few new viewers are wondering what must is, so just bear with me until I get into position and just check this bull is okay with our presence, and then I'll explain. He's more than fine with our presence. Must is the cycle that male elephants go through when they're ready to mate. And it stems from, there's lots of different origins of the actual word must, but it refers to temporary insanity, because it wasn't fully understood what was wrong with elephants when they go into must, because testosterone in their blood increases. Hello, boy. Hi. You can see his left tusk is so much shorter than his right tusk. Oh, you're a big boy. So the testosterone in his body increases up to 60 times the normal amount, and he's ready to mate. So he goes into what is termed a state of must, and this is when he will go from herd to herd, actively seeking females in estrus in order to mate with them. But they act, well, slightly crazy, shall we say, when they go into a state of must. And that's where the term temporary insanity stems from. They behave very boisterous, they become extra, very, very aggressive. There we go. And you've got to watch out for bulls and must. You've got to be very, very careful, which is why I'm keeping my distance here, because they've got so much testosterone pumping through their blood. Now, as a bull gets older, normally the first onset of must can occur around 18 years old, but as a bull gets older, they must last longer. It's not sort of so in a cycle as a female's estrus cycle is. It lasts for prolonged lengths of time. Now he's heading off into the thicket here. Oh, this might be our last view of him. Can you get him from here, Davy? And as he gets older, it's a longer period of time. And this is when he's ready to mate. And he must actively seek females. So he will go from herd to herd and use his nostrils to smell females, especially their urine, to see if they're receptive and if they're in estrus. If they're not in estrus, he will not try to mate with them. But if they are in estrus, then of course he will. And he's much bigger than most of the cows. So he has advantage of size, and sometimes the females don't really have a choice when there's a musk bull around. I'm just trying to look for a bit of a window to get another view of him. It's very thick here. Animals galore, yes we do. You get tuskless individuals of both sexes, male and female. It's very, very common normally with males. Sorry, I thought he was going to pop out. It appears he has not. He's going to. He's quite far away. With males, it's normally said to be that they lose them. They can actually lose their tusk and break their tusks from just generally being boisterous and aggressive and engaging in battle. But with females, if you do come across a female tuskless individual, it's normally said to be from some sort of genetics, that the females don't have tusks. But yes, we do get tuskless individuals of both sexes. And they can survive. They can survive and thrive without their tusks. Obviously, it's an advantage if they have them. I think this might be the last visual that we can give you of this bull. I'm afraid he's heading deep into this block. Isn't he magnificent? Very, very short left tusk. It actually looks like it's broken. It's common for elephants to have one tusk much shorter than the other because they actually are like us. They're either left-handed or right-handed. They have one dominant side, so they will use one tusk to dig and to pull bark off the trees and to dig at the ground a lot more than they will use the other one. So that tends to wear down quicker. So it's very, very common to find elephants with uneven-sized tusks. But this individual, it looks like he's broken his left one. Somehow. Who knows how? Okay, we're going to let this bull be because he's gone deep into that block and he's in must. I can smell it and I can see all the signs of it, and we do not want to go into a block after a must bull. If it was a breeding herd, you could probably pop your nose in a little bit, but not after a must bull, I'm afraid. They can change just like that. I wonder if there's a herd nearby. Okay, I'm going to try and see if there's any other elephants nearby. I think it would be lovely to spend time with more of them. And as I do that, let's go across to James for an update.
Of the Marty. Well, no, I don't know what river it is. It's the one that flows out of Beeple's Hook Dam past the leopard den. But I'm afraid in terms of mammal life, I've had very little charmed luck this morning. I went for a walk around where the vultures were, thinking perhaps there was some meat hanging in a tree or a pride of lions on a big beefalo, but no. There was a very beautiful tambuti grove that I thoroughly enjoyed walking through. Owen, don't move. Sit very still. Oh, don't run. Please don't run. Can you see it? Yes? Can you see the straw in front of us?
Yes,
Just in front of the straw, we've got a terrapin. A marsh terrapin. Looking for a marsh. I believe my sound is now awful again. It's now moving down the road. Can you see it, Owen?
No.
It's just walking down the road. Straight in front of us.
I got him.
So there's the marsh terrapin, looking for a marsh. What it's going to have to do is find itself some mud, go into that mud, and then hope for better days. There is a little pan around the corner, and it might be able to find itself some comfort there. Voracious predators are the marsh terrapins. Many think of them as being like gentle tortoises, but they are not. They are predators. And the big ones will even catch doves as they come down to drink, like a sort of shelled crocodile, if you like. We will go and check at these pans, see if anything is waiting there for us. Chinmay, predators are largely opportunistic, so while they might not actively hunt if they are not hungry, they will certainly hunt if the opportunity presents itself. And the best example of that I have is of a half-hour period I spent with a pride of lions in the Masai Mara during the migration. They were called the Slick Pride. And the Salt Lake Pride killed 8 wildebeest in half an hour, and they didn't eat one of them. So they were so gorged on wildebeest meat from the migration that it had become a habit that they'd get up at sort of sundown as the wildebeest herds came through, and they'd just go and hunt them. And they hit 8 of them in half an hour before we lost them. They could have killed even more than that. And so I think the instinct to kill and hunt is almost separate from the instinct to eat. That makes sense? Well, this is a good spot to do that. I'll do that for you, Lynn. We're going to stop by this little pan, and I will tell you about the trees in this area. There are a couple of nice, obvious ones here. Are you ready, Owen, to do the segment of trees? Let me get out of the car, for this will make it easier for all concerned. Lynn, the first one we're going to begin with is Combretum imberbe. That is this one here, or the leadwood tree. There it is. And the most common tree we get here is a relative of this called Combretum apiculatum, or the red bush willow. So that's leadwood. Common in these low-lying areas near the riverbeds or drainage lines. Another common one for the area, quickly down here, Owen, is the guaribush, or magic guarri, Euclea divinorum, so called because apparently it's used to divine water. I personally have not managed to divine water with it, but some tell me they can. I shall walk past it now. One more around here, and then we'll move into the drainage line, which is where the pretty ones live. This is the russet bush willow, Combretum apiculatum, at least Combretum herreroense, so there are lots and lots of bush willows, and they also like to grow quite close to drainage line areas. Nice example here of knob thorn, or used to be acacia, Senegalia niagrescens, and you can see the knobs on the bark, so it makes it easy to identify. Knob thorn. Apparently you can use those if you have a toothache. I use codeine if I can. And then a very common one, Ziziphus mucronata. Over here, that is the buffalo thorn, and it's got a deliciously edible leaf. Deliciously, it's edible. It's not amazing. And a slightly less common one here, Rusquenzii, or the thorny curry. And then, Owen, if you swing over to the left-hand side there, of where you're sitting, we'll see the magnificent jackalberry or Diospirus messpelliformes. That's the one with the very dark black bark, often called an ebony tree, and they grow on the drainage line areas. And to the left of that one, Owen, is another big Combretum herreraense, and you can see the little russet-coloured pods. And I'm trying to think if there are any other majorly common ones we get out here. I mean,
We're actually looking at this guy. This is the russet.
no, that's the jackalberry you're looking at now.
Yeah, but down here in front.
No, that's a red bush willow. So the russet is the big one up top there.
Ah, okay.
And you can see it's got its pods. So those are the trees in this particular area. That's most of the common ones. And so, the only thing we don't really have here is a marula tree. They are all on the ridge crests. And so basically what you have is something called a catina, where on the ridge crests you'll find a lot of broadleaf trees like the Combretum, the red bush willows, and marulas. You move a little bit down the crest and you'll have more bush willows into the seepline areas where you'll have silver cluster leaves, and then down into the low-lying areas where we're sitting now, where you get the leadwoods, quarry bushes, and then down onto the drainage lines where you'll find things like jackalberries. That's a really broad kind of idea of what we have here. There are over 100 species of tree here, and I've given you probably about 10. Good. On we proceed. Nanaby, yes, I have hugged a tree today. No, I haven't. I lie. I haven't hugged a tree today. I suppose I could hug this tree, Nanaby, for your benefit. This is a leadwood tree. I hope there isn't a rabid mamba in it. There we are. I must say it does feel quite nice to hug a tree, even if it is dead. And this one is very dead. Long deceased. Thank you, Nanaby. I feel energized now. Thank you, Lynn. My pleasure. I quite like talking about trees. As I've always said, trees are great things to learn because they never move. They're not like birds which fly away at a moment's notice. So they're much easier to learn than anything else out here. They're probably also slightly less exciting. There's some birds. Look at that. There's a woodpecker. 2 woodpeckers. Can you see them there?
I see where the one was. Oh, he's just taken.
And they've just taken off. Of course they have. They look like bearded woodpeckers to me.
There's a few birds in that tree, right?
Which one?
There's a few.
In that knobthorn.
Yes. But. Okay, I think I've got it.
Oh, there's a scimitarbill at the top.
Yes. Scimitarbills have left.
Oh, they've left, of course they have. Sounds like a few waxbills. Yep, there are definitely some waxbills next to us. But otherwise, they're all flying around with a great speed. Have you got any others there?
No.
Okay, let's move along. It's quite a good idea if you really want a bird to just sit still for a long time. Will then stop worrying about you. That was a fun little dendrological discourse, I suppose. Let's go across to Nicky now. I don't know what he's doing up at andBeyond Ngala, but I'm sure he'll tell you.
So one of the other rangers, Rowan, remember this morning we said there was 2 impala carcasses, the one that was on the ground and the one hoisted up into the tree. So Rowan went past, him and Sean went past that one that was on the ground, and he says he saw a leopard moving to the bank. So we're now just going to go slowly up here and see if we can find this female. This might be a different one to the one that we're thinking. This one could be that Ngala female who has one youngster So I just want to quickly see if we'll be able to get on the side and see if we'll be able to spot it. Just slowly want to approach and see if there's a glimpse of her. So it's somewhere up in the tree right in front of us. Just have a look. Marcel, you must tell me if you see anything. I haven't seen anything yet. I just want to go back a little bit and we'll just switch off the vehicle and just listen. And hear if we can maybe hear her or even that youngster. I'm trying to scan the banks, look out for little bits of white, maybe the tail flicking. Stop right over here. Let me just quickly use the binoculars just to scan this area, see if we can see anything. Just want to give it a minute or two, because what I'm thinking is I could hear some rustling in the grass at the top. So if we don't see anything from here, we might just loop around and get to the top section. But for now, while we're waiting, let's head across to Lauren.
Oh, that was a bumpy part of the road. Sorry, Davy. We're also not having a very fruitful morning, I'm afraid. Not very fruitful at all, but luckily the sun is out. I'm very happy to see that sun shining. And of course, all the butterflies are fluttering. Everything's alive. I'm not a fan of those overcast grey days. No. I would go back to Scotland if I liked those days. Slender mongoose, no! Okay, let me try and get closer. That's not one over there, is it? No. Okay, we hardly ever see slender mongoose. Hold on. I highly doubt we're going to be able to get this for you again, but let's try. Sorry, Kirst, one more time with that question. Did you see it, Davy? It just was on the road and it just went, and we're never going to find a slender mongoose in here, I'm afraid. We see dwarf mongoose all the time out here. Slenders are very shy. Very, very rare to get a good sighting of a slender mongoose. And of course, they're far more slender than the dwarfies, and they have a very, very long tail. Now, we have a family of them that live in camp, and we see them all the time, but to try to get one on camera, for some reason they're just very skittish. I'm sorry, everyone. I tried. I got very excited there. We have the white-tailed mongoose that we see at night time. They're nocturnal. They're quite common and definitely not as skittish as the slenders. And we also get bandied mongoose out here, but they're quite rare. It's not so common to see the bandied mongoose, whereas up in the Masai Mara, the bandied mongoose are everywhere. Just one more scan. I think we missed it. I probably startled it with the vehicle, having no idea that it was round the corner, of course. Oh. Mr. Slender has disappeared. I got rather excited there. Let's see what else we can find. It's really not easy when the grass is this long, but I think it's slowly going to start receding again once winter comes. And we popped into Lawrence Pan, two of Twin Dams, and there's just no weaver action. I have not seen a weaver there for weeks now. I think it's over, which is a real sign that winter is coming. I think within 2 weeks, winter's going to be here, and slowly but surely the vegetation will start to recede, the grass will start to die, leaves will fall off trees, and the entire environment around us is going to change. Flowers will disappear, insects will disappear, and it will make it easier for us to see, because of course right now we cannot see through this really long grass. That's a challenge of summer, and I guess that's the beauty of winter. Although it's cold, there's definitely not much life. It's the beauty when all the vegetation is, of course, short. Carmen, you're 8 years old, and yes, it can be a challenge for some of the herbivores to find food. So the most important thing is food and water. And luckily, in this area, we actually have 2 pans that will always have water throughout winter. They're man-made, and they're pumped with water. So it provides any animal, not just your herbivores, but also your carnivores, with a constant supply of water. And that's actually why it's so easy for us to find animals in winter, because they gather, they concentrate around the water holes. No animal can survive without water, and therefore we can see them easily around water holes. When it comes to food, yes, it depends on what kind of winter you have, and I'm wondering about this winter because we've had so much water during summer. The dams are full. The sort of vegetation is the thickest it's been in so long. And I'm wondering if this winter might be a little bit kinder to the herbivores. But yes, it can be a challenge. And a few years ago, there was actually a lot of kudus that were dead, I'm afraid. And that's because they were eating food that they normally wouldn't eat. Leaves of certain trees that they would normally never feed on that had high tannins in it. And once tannins build up in your system, it can actually kill you, it can cause organ failure. And although a little bit of tannin wouldn't kill you, once it builds up and builds up, the kudus were eating the wrong food time and time again. A lot of them were dying. So yes, it can affect the herbivores. They can lose condition. They can start to look very skinny and scrawny, and sometimes they can get savaged by mange. So yes, it will affect the herbivores. But I have a feeling, and I could be wrong, it's just a feeling, that this winter could be a little bit kinder to our herbivores, and I hope that's the case. It's also trickier for the carnivores because they can't hide in the long grass. The bushes are not so thick, they can't utilize that to hide when sneaking up on their prey. So winter brings challenges for everybody. Water is no longer readily available. Okay, I'm going to check quarantine, see if anything is happening there towards the end of the drive, and we're going to send you guys back to James with a hornbill.
There is our hornbill. This has not been a day for the exotic, I wouldn't say. The southern red-billed hornbill, Toccus rufirostris. Rufirostris. Toccus rufirostris. Not the most exotic bird here, but an interesting bird nevertheless. I shall now tell you about all the things that it has ever eaten in its whole life. Are you ready? Here we go. Termites, flies, ants, beetles. All fly eggs, larvae. Larger arthropods include grasshoppers, centipedes, termite alates, scorpions, and solifuges. Less often, small vertebrates including reptiles or even birds' eggs and nestlings. Scavengers, dead rodents, rarely eat small seeds and fruits, e.g. of shepherd's tree, boskia species, or corkwoods. Has it gone?
Going behind that long grass.
Oh, of course he has. Of course he has. My favourite thing about the red-billed hornbill is his name in German. The Rotschnabeltocco. It's a Rotschnabeltocco, and it is my second favourite German bird's name. My first is the red-billed oxpecker, which is the Rotschnabelmadenhacker. Ah, das ist ein Rotschnabelmadenhacker. The Rotschnabeltocco has just gone up there. The Rotschnabelmadenhacker. Now, I don't speak German, so I do apologize to any German speakers who are listening to my horrific pronunciation of German words. And there the glorious sound of the chin-spot batis, which is not saying three blind mice at all.
That's a stupid thing. Oh, there he is.
You got him there. And there he goes. It's a Rotschnabeltocco. Goodbye, Rotschnabeltocco. Have you there?
Oh, you marked it so funny. It's okay, right? It's okay.
Dane wants to know the hornbills do what? No, Dane. Hornbills definitely do not work as lion secretaries. Absolutely not. I'm not sure where that comes from. Oh, of course, comes from that biological travesty that is the lion. Sorry. Yes, of course. That was really stupid of me. I didn't pick that up. No, Dane. That's an apocryphal story. It's not true. Nor do they sound like Rowan Atkinson or whoever they got to do in the second version. A lion will eat a hornbill so much as take advice from him. I believe I was so incredibly slow. Sorry about that, Dane. You were probably making a joke and I was thick to get it. All right, let's quickly go back to Lauren.
We have some warty hogs. Okay, we've got some lapwings and some starlings that are not happy with one another. That's what that noise was all about. But I think this could be the same family that we always see on quarantine, a mother and three little piglets that are getting bigger and bigger by the day. They're quite relaxed for warthogs. I think it's the same ones, but I have no way of actually confirming that unless we can identify them. But I'm pretty sure it's the same warthogs we see day after day. Hello. Always terrified, always alert. They're very skittish out here. I spent time with warthogs in Ethiopia, and they were very friendly, much larger, and they would come straight towards you. Really, really no fear for humans, but warthogs out here, they're not so relaxed. And I think it's because we've got such a high number of predators here. Leopards and lions will go for warthogs. There's a lot of meat on a warthog. Anushka, they kneel to eat because, believe it or not, they actually have sort of calloused pads on their wrists, if you like. Now, they're not quite wrists as you and I would call them, so they're not actually kneeling because they're not on their knees. It's more like a wrist joint. I have a spider crawling on me, everyone. And let me just get this little spider off me before he ends up somewhere I don't want him to be. Oh no, he's gone in my box. He's gone. So yes, they have special pads on their wrists which allow them to sort of bend over like that, and what they're trying to do is remain steady and use their tusks to dig into the ground. So warthogs love to feed on bulbs and tubers and all sorts of delicious things that are just under the ground, and I guess it's easier for them to be down on their wrists like that to get enough power in order to upturn the soil and get into the juicy deliciousness of whatever is underground. So it's their method of feeding, but they're actually designed for it. They all have specialized pads on their wrist to allow them to do that. And they're essentially grazing. But I find it very amusing to see when warthogs do that. Put their bottoms in the air. Yeah, this is Mama. Definitely Mama and the 3 youngsters. It's the same ones we see all the time here, for sure. There's also another adult, but I don't know if it's a male or a female. Sometimes females, especially when they're mothers, like to all come together. They like to hang out together. You will regularly see females in the one grouping of warthogs. I actually got asked the other day what's the strangest animal in Africa. And I guess I forgot about warthogs. They're really bizarre looking, especially when you see their skull. I'm actually going to show you their skull on my Mammals app. So the pads that I was actually referring to on their wrists, here we go, Davy, they're actually formed in the fetus. So that's how important it is to have these pads in order for a warthog to bend down on its wrist. So these are the joints that you were talking about, Anushka. That pad there, that bulbous part, allows it to bend down on what we would call the wrist joint. And if I just go up, you can see how bizarre the skull looks. It's completely elongated at the front here, and it's a very, very large head. So although warthogs are very small animals, their skull is extremely heavy, and this particular app says that the total length is 400 millimeters. It's a very, very long, elongated snout, very heavy, and of course they've got 2 sets of tusks, not just one. They've got the tusks on the upper jaw and on the lower jaw, plus teeth. That's a lot of weight that warthogs carry on their head. And once that sun starts to set, you will find that the warthogs completely disappear inside burrows. They know that they're a delicacy for many of the predators here, and they can't risk roaming around at night time. So you will find them hiding inside burrows and termite mounds. So you can see that elongated snout is also designed to allow them to graze. Most animals that do have that long or that heavy hanging head, you can almost bet that they are grazers. Ah, how lovely. We're going to keep bumbling, see what else we can find around here. And we're going to send you guys back across to Nicky looking for his leopard.
So we had a look to see where, like Rowan saw this female leopard, and I think where she's moved on to is a place where we can't really see her from with a vehicle, because she's moved into quite a dense area, her and the youngster. And I think what will happen is she's probably like bringing that youngster all the way back to the carcass. So we don't want to spend too much time there. We'd rather wait for this afternoon when it cools down and maybe come back and see if there's a chance of finding that female with the youngster. I'm super excited. I just can't wait. But I do know, just excited as I am to see these leopard, like this mother with her youngster, I know Marcel is just as excited to share the fact of the day. So I'm just moving away because I don't want him to be dragged up into a tree. And then
I was looking forward to it.
and then see if we can quickly get him to share a very interesting fact of the day. So there's a beautiful shade right in front of us here. So maybe I can quickly stop, jump off. Come on, Marcel, it has to be really good. Okay. Tell me where... Alright, here he comes.
Just like that's good.
Okay, you ready?
Thanks, Nicky.
There we go.
So we often get questions such as how do animals keep warm in cold weather and stuff. So that made me think about animal fibers, so the fleece. So the finest fleece that we know of that we can get from animals is a split between three animals. It's the vicuña that occurs in the mountainous regions of Peru and Chile, the Angora rabbit from Turkey, and then also the Tibetan antelope. So all of these, their fleece, they measure between 9 and 12 microns thick per individual strand. But the finest vicuña that has been measured was only 6 microns, which is amazingly thin. And then also, we get questions about national parks, which made me think the oldest national park in the sense of that's now seen as a national park and was declared as a protected area first is Bokht Khan Ul National Park in Mongolia. It's close to their capital city, Ulaanbaatar. And that was already declared as a protected site in 1778. But as Mongolia hasn't existed as a country, independent country for that long, if you had to classify it as protected as a national park by the same government, you'd have to go for Yellowstone National Park. That was declared in 1790, if I remember correctly.
Thank you, Moshe. On that note, should we carry on and see what other interesting things we can find along the way? All right, so while we're carrying on, let's head across to James.
Foul road. Here we are at our waterhole in front of Djuma, and we are going to... Oh, I always miss that greenback heron as it flies off. We'll quickly have a look first at the Egyptian gooses as they fly away, the little family of gooses. The goslings are nearly now gooses themselves. Love the call of the little grebe.
You've got the monitor on the tree here.
Oh, and you've got the monitor. Well spotted there, Owen. And we'll go and see the grebe shortly. Kirsten in the final controls becoming impatient about not seeing the grebe. There are some, and were some, guinea fowls alarming here earlier, and I can see the cause of their consternation. It is an African hawk eagle that would surely eat one for breakfast if given half a chance. Okay, let's go forward, Owen, and have a look at the grebe. I don't see Dewey right now. I'm assuming he's here. Dewey is the hippopotamus. Oh, the eggies are all covered up. You see there?
Yes, yeah.
So they've covered the eggs up while they go foraging.
She's busy covering up at the moment.
No, she's there.
Yeah.
I didn't even see her there. Now,
There's a couple of eggs there.
this is really interesting. I'm being told she just brought a leaf and put it on. I can't actually see what she did. There are 3 grebes that hang out in this pan. The 2 adults, which we have with us now, one of them about to rush into the gooselings, and there's a juvenile. And I don't see the juvenile here today. I also don't see Dewey the hippopotamus, and nor did I see the hippopotami at Biffle's Hook Waterhole, which is on the northeast corner. And so I wonder if there isn't a hippopotamus conference going on somewhere today that we don't know about. Some sort of meeting in defiance of lockdown.
These two rushing into each other's arms.
Yes, I think rushing into each other's arms is quite a strong description of what they're doing, but they certainly do seem to be floating gently towards one another. Yeah, the guinea fowl are going ballistic in the distance because the African hawk eagle has just taken off. Oh, now we're playing a little game. Hello, Boo, in Arizona. You say this was a fun drive. Thank you. Yes, well, we enjoyed it too. That's why we do the job. Oh, here we go. There's the hawk eagle. The hawk eagle just tried to have a go at one. We can't see it. Just see there?
The camp.
Yeah, right there. Here comes the guinea fowl. Flying up into the tree. I just watched the hawk eagle come through the gap between the camp and the inlet there. I'm sure you can hear them all there. All right, everybody, that's going to be it for the drive. Oh, just quickly, for the last 10 seconds, we can extend very slightly. Owen, off to the end there, the other side.
Yeah.
The other side there is the juvenile dab chick or grebe. Can you see it there?
No, I'm on the goose.
No, go to the left, way left of where you are. Just gone under the water. Way left. Left. You see him there?
No, I've got a goose.
No, left then. If you've got a goose, you're nowhere close to left enough.
I'm right at the top of the dam.
No, come down away from the top of the dam.
There.
You got him there. So there are 3 grebes in this waterhole. Fascinating. You will all be deeply relieved, and that is going to be the end of our drive. Thank you for your questions and comments. It was pretty quiet here at Djuma, but it was still beautiful, and we will see you this afternoon again at 15:30. Until then, stay safe and happy, and most of all, stay healthy. Bye-bye.